So LSU football is getting spring drills going on Saturday morning. They are looking to replace a ton of faces in production. Obviously, when you look at the NFL Combine and you see the presence that LSU has there, and you're talking about the pre-draft build-up, LSU's all over the place. How do they replace those faces for the 2020 edition of the Tigers? We'll find out this Saturday. But when you look at the numbers of championship teams of what they have to replace, it's a pretty interesting stat to break down.
Yeah, so I got sucked into some weird Twitter thread with this guy from Ohio, like yelling about Joe Brady and how he was definitely the offensive coordinator and all this stuff. I didn't really care about any of that. But what did stand out, there's a chart that was linked. And it looked up, because LSU's now lost, 14 players? And this is not getting into the coaches and analysts, but 14 starters, leaving from last year's team. Well, how does that stack up compared to other recent champions? So they had a chart, and I looked at the ones that lost 11 players or more, right? That feels like a good number. It's double digits. It represents like one side of the ball, and it gets pretty interesting. So in 2007, LSU lost 11 starters. They go 8-5 the next year. In 2012, Bama lost 11. They go 11-2. In 2018, Clemson loses 11. They go 14-1. In 2009, Bama loses 12 starters. They go 10-3. In 2015, Bama loses 12 starters. They go 14-1. 2011, Alabama loses 13 starters. They go 13-1. 2006, Florida lost 14 starters. They only managed 9-4 the next year. And then the ultimate example is, of course, Gene Chizik's 2010 Auburn, who lost 15 starters and then fell to 8-5 the next season. And so there are teams that are on this list multiple times, and there are teams that are on this list once. And this is why a lot of people are saying that this year is so important, right? It's kind of a taking the temperature of the program into which tier do you really belong to. Are you in the Florida, Ohio State, Auburn, the tier, like you won a championship, like you did it, and then that is incredible, and that should be celebrated and will be celebrated for years and years. Look at how we talk about the Saints Super Bowl, right? We still love the thing. Are you in that tier, or are you bumping up to that Alabama tier, to that Clemson tier, where despite the fact that you lose all these guys, you're still managing to put out great records? And I think the other thing that this shows me is that I think it gives me an acceptable number to prove that you're in the number, and that 10-win cutoff really does seem to be the one, right? I mean, even in Alabama's worst following year, after 2009, lose 12 starters, they still managed to go 10-3 the next season. And I've said that's been kind of my base goal from the beginning for this program, and all of this just reinforces that. So if you want to know how good the overall health of the program is, and look, I think it's actually, I know it sounds crazy, and I know I sound like a homer, but I actually really like this LSU team. I mean, we did the offensive preview yesterday, and yeah, there's a lot of question marks, and you got a lot on Prentice back and a lot on whoever's going to play centers back and a couple other O-line spots, but I like the talent at these positions, right? And we'll talk more defense tomorrow, but this is an LSU team that is absolutely capable of going 10-3. And then what that success does, that consistent success, it starts to build on itself, it starts to feed itself, starts to recruit itself. And so this is it's a big year. It's a really big year for the Tigers. And then if you're an LSU fan, if you listen close to what I just read, that 2007 team went from being national champs, then in 2008 going 8-5. And then look at the climb that it took you to get back to being there. So can LSU avoid the drop-off of 2007 LSU, of what Florida team was it? 2006 Florida, or 2010 Auburn? It'll be interesting to watch.